The Knicks are back. Staten Mellow. This dedicated to my city, New York. Official kings in the court. Reach for the ball, a hard lesson gets taught. So bring your skills to the nearest playground. No clown around. Catch a helmet in a minute on a New York playground. The Big Apple's what they call it for short. And basketball is our sport. We play for keeps and never settle for sure. So bring your game when you come to my town. We snatch a crowd. You get embarrassed on the court after you shook to the ground. You get respected when you prove to get down. So save the joke for the clowns. And NYC, we known to go a few rounds. This is the city where you're forced to go hard. You'll get booed out of Dodge and shown the door being the weakest on squads. Rucker Park and summer nights, they stay live. Brothers play for the pride and bragging rights on who's the king of NY. So grab the pill and prepare to go hard. Pick your 12-man squad. Orange and blue, better believe we go hard. This for my city, New York, New York City where it's gritty. Yeah. For my city, never pretty. New York City, sing it with me. Yeah. For my city, New York City where it's gritty. NYC, for my city, never pretty. Yeah. New York City, sing it with me. New York City, sing it with me. Still's the great Knicks Talk Nation Radio every Monday, 10 to 11. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Your boy is back at it again, and we got a whole lot to talk about with the Knicks, man. You know what I'm saying? It was a great weekend for the team. You know what I mean? They didn't win, but at least they competed. You know what I mean? And that's what today's show is going to kind of focus on. The fact that we already know that the season is kind of like a lost season. You know, the team kind of underachieved this year. You know, they let a lot of fans like myself down after a great year last year, you know, surprising everybody with 41 wins out the gate, you know, with a new coach, new invigorized franchise, fan base. Everybody was really happy last year. And then this year, reality kind of set in, and it's looking like the same old Knicks. But throughout it all, people can say whatever they want to say. The Knicks have a very bright future. This is the first time in a long time that the team has actually had all of their draft picks moving forward, along with other teams' draft picks moving forward. We have a lot of young, budding stars, talent. We definitely have cap space moving forward, and we have movable pieces, man. And regardless to what some may say, our front office is intact. I think that a lot of mainstream media, namely, you know, guys like Michael Kay, and this is no shot at him, he's a legend in the industry. A lot of these guys hate the fact that Leon Rose and World Wide West don't make themselves available to the media as much. So, you know, they look for any little thing to bash them, to say that this is a terrible team that they put together. What are they really doing? When in actuality, the Knicks are in great shape, man, and the Knicks haven't been in this good of shape since I've been a fan. You know, we've never had the combination of draft picks, young players, veteran talent, and cap space moving forward. This is the first time in a long time that we've had it. So regardless to what others can say, we still have the flexibility and the ability to actually make moves and get some big time players to come in New York. And I'm gonna get to that a little bit later in the show today. You know what I mean? Shout out to everybody that's out there listening live on BARSANDHOOPSRadio.com. Shout out to everybody that's checking us out live on Facebook, live on Twitter. You know what I mean? Shout out to everybody that's checking us out live on YouTube. You know what I mean? But like I said, man, the Knicks are in great shape moving forward, regardless of what anybody has to say. You know what I mean? For real. Shout out to the Facebook users out there checking us out, man. It says, Stills, you're my guy, but I'm bugging. Tell me how I'm bugging. Tell me how I am bugging that the Knicks aren't in good shape. We have all of the cap space that we need. We have tradable assets. We have draft picks moving forward. And we have players that other teams can possibly use to make a championship run elsewhere. Tell me where I am bugging at. Please tell me that. You know what I mean? And again, shout out to all my peoples out there checking me out. Tori, I see you. Malik, I see you. Cletus, my brother, I see you. But again, tell me when was the last time that the Knicks had everything that I just mentioned moving forward into any summer or any off season to where people are seriously considering the Knicks a contender and getting some of these top players that are going to be disgruntled moving into the summer. There are going to be disgruntled players. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. And there are also guys that wanted to come to New York when they were drafted, a la Zion Williamson. We have the pieces to get it done. And I think that when it's all said and done, the Knicks are going to make something happen, man. Believe it or not. You heard it here first. Knicks Talk Nation Radio. Tell a friend to tell a friend. If you want to call in, the number to call in is 516-206-0711. Now, back to what I was talking about. Let's get back to the weekend recap. Starting on Friday, like I said, the Knicks didn't have a successful road trip, and they definitely didn't have a successful weekend as far as wins were concerned. But as I said, the team competed and they played hard against two of the NBA giants in the league. So let's take it back to Friday. And shout out to the Facebook users out there. We are in great shape. Please don't trade Reddish. I like that. I like Cam Reddish. I like the fact that they bought Reddish in. I don't like the fact that Thibodeau didn't take the time out to use him earlier in the trade. And unfortunately, Cam Reddish's season is over due to a separated shoulder. And, it's only about a handful of games left. So we won't really get to see, what a healthy Cam Reddish would look like moving forward until the summer and until next season. But it was a good move. He's a good young player. All he needs is time, and he needs the right system so that he can flourish. And the Knicks kind of brought him in, let's be honest, man, to kind of lure a guy like Zion Williamson who wanted to be here from the gate. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? Like I said, the number to call in is 516-206-0711 if you want to share your thoughts on anything that I just said. Now, back to Friday night in Memphis. Again, we played against one of the teams with the best record in the NBA and one of the hottest young players in the NBA who people are comparing to Allen Iverson. I think it's a stretch comparing Ja Morant to Allen Iverson, but hey, whatever floats your boat, I get it. He's an exciting young player. He's very talented. He's very athletic, and he's taking the league by storm. The Knicks played a great game on Friday. They should have actually won that game, but again, the same thing that has plagued us all season was what plagued us in that game against Memphis. We had a comfortable lead, and we played great through 4 quarters. But again, in total Knicks fashion, they blew a 9-point lead heading into the 4th quarter. They were up 96-87 and eventually lost the game, 118-114. But let's take it back. As I said before, Memphis, they have a young star, something that we don't have, or young superstar, I should say, because we have star players and very talented players, but we don't have a superstar. Ja Morant scored 37 points and dished out 8 boards. You know what I mean? He definitely shined. And the Knicks had no answer for him. All night he was scoring at will, and there was nothing that they can do to stop him due to his athleticism and his freakish speed on the court. On the Knicks side of things, Julius Randle poured in 36 points, grabbed 12 boards, and he also had 4 turnovers. 4 out of the 12 team turnovers that the team had, and that's something that plagued us down the stretch as well. That's something that's been a problem with Randle his whole career. This year it's been a glaring weakness on the team. Last year he didn't have that many turnovers because he played more in the Florida offense, and he was definitely green light time for him on offense. This year he struggled to adjust to the help that he got, and it ended up biting us in the behind in the end of crunch time in a lot of games, namely Friday's game and also Sunday's game, which I'm going to get to. RJ Barrett, who's also a budding star on the Knicks. He's coming to his own this season. He poured in 23 points and grabbed 7 boards. Mitchell Robinson added 10 points and 16 boards in a clean double-double effort. As I said before, the Knicks played well. They played well, but they just couldn't stop Ja Morant. And as I said earlier, he scored at ease and he scored at will. You know what I mean? The good thing is that RJ Barrett is coming into his own. He had a great road trip and he had a great season. And we'll talk a little bit more about RJ and his progress as I move forward in the show. Let's move to yesterday's game. Yesterday's game was also a winnable game. You know what I mean? The Knicks traveled to Brooklyn to play the Brooklyn Nets, minus Kyrie Irving, not playing, sitting in the stands. He was in the building with no mask, and the Nets were also fined $10,000 to what seems to me to be like a nonsensical situation going on in New York, not just in Brooklyn, but in New York in general, with the mask mandate and the mayor and Kyrie not being able to play and all that other stuff. You know, that's another thing for a whole nother show. But back to the game. Yesterday's game simply came down to one team having a superstar and the other team not having a superstar play on their team. Kevin Durant showed why he's the best player in basketball right now. Yes, I'm saying he's the best player in basketball. I don't care what LeBron is doing in LA. I don't care about what Steph Curry is doing in Golden State. I don't care about what Giannis is doing in Milwaukee. Kevin Durant is a walking bucket, and he's the best player in the NBA, hands down. The man is a walking bucket. He can score anywhere on the floor from three-point range. He can handle the rock like a guard. He can pass it with the best of them, and he defends. And he can clearly put a team on his back and carry him the way that he did yesterday. The Brooklyn Nets beat the Knicks 110-107. Kevin Durant had 53 points. He almost had half of what the Nets' points production. That's ridiculous. Andre Drummond, he had a solid performance, and this is a guy that I said that the Knicks need to go after as well. He scored 18 points and grabbed 10 boards. But again, they didn't have enough to get it done. Let's go to some of the chat, the Facebook users in the chat. So one of the users says, okay, where do I begin? First of all, our power forward needs to start playing his position and stop thinking that he's a point guard. Why is he the only power forward in the league with no handle that wants to play point guard? Yes, he might have 26 and 10 boards, but he at the same time will have damn near 8 to 9 turnovers. Second in all guys played no defense whatsoever. I'm just saying, let me know if I'm lying, my brother. No, you're not lying, my brother. Yes. And the guy that you're talking about is Julius Randle. And we speak about this weekly. You know what I mean? Yes, he had a great season last year. Was it a fluke? Was he playing for the bag? It looks like it. You know what I mean? Because ever since then, you know, it's been downhill. And what the Knicks did this offseason was the right thing. They brought in offense to help him because as we saw in the playoffs last year against Atlanta, we were exposed. We were exposed by the fact that Julius Randle couldn't score the basketball when it came crunch time. When teams decided to buckle down on him, he couldn't do anything. You know what I mean? He has no, shout out to he said, no handle Randle. Yes, he doesn't have that type of a game to where he can score at will, create off the dribble, do all types of things with the rock. No, he doesn't have that type of game. So yes, he was a turnover machine. And when teams tightened up on him and things got handled and things got tough, he ended up going. And shout out to John Conception for that one. I see you, my brother. He did not show up. He did not have a big game, and the Knicks addressed that in the offseason. Shout out to my guy Mike Elliott. I see you, bro. Yes, I'm not bugging. I am not bugging. We could debate this all day. You know what I mean? For real. But again, Julius Randle showed that he couldn't handle the pressure, showed that he needed some help on offense, and the Knicks front office did what they did. They brought in a Kemba Walker, who still has something in the tank. And he showed us when he came back from that first benching. You know what I mean? He showed us that he can score the basketball. And shout out to Mike Elliott, my man. I might have to have you on the show, Playboy. You know, we got to do some cross promotions too. Talk about that good old food you got out there. He said the problem is not for nothing from a reliable source within the Knicks organization. Randle is a cancer in the locker room. I believe that. I believe that, you know, the fact that Tibbs wasn't holding him accountable for all the turnovers and the bad shots that he takes, it kind of poisoned the locker room. And it made guys look at it like guys like Obi. And shout out to Obi Toppin Sr. That's my guy right there. You know, Obi is always on the show. He always comes to the station every now and then to chop it up with me. We talk about it all the time. Obi is playing like he's walking on eggshells. He's scared to death to turn the ball over or do something that'll get him a quick hook to the bench. You know what I mean? It's just not a healthy environment. And shout out to Mike for pointing that out. You can clearly tell that the team is toxic. The locker room is divided. And, you know, guys are definitely rebelling against the coach because he's not holding Julius Randle accountable. You know what I mean? Shout out to Mike for that. Yes, sir. That is definitely a big problem, and that's a glaring issue within the Knicks organization. And I think they're going to handle it this summer, quite frankly. But back to Sunday's game. Again, Kevin Durant, it was just too much Kevin Durant, man. He scored 53 points, grabbed 9 boards. Andre Drummond chipped in 18 points, grabbed 10 boards. But the Knicks, even though they had a tough game, they had a good game. Julius Randle scored 26 points. He grabbed 4 boards. R.J. Barrett added 24 points, and Evan Fournier had a good outing with 25 points as well. You know what I mean? So, again, let's go to the chat again. Said, actually, it was stated that Tibbs is scared of Randle, and he is scared of getting fired like how he got fired in Minnesota. I'm kind of torn on that because, you know, if Tibbs was really afraid of being fired, I think that he would have listened a long time ago when they was pressing him to play the young guys. A lot of fans like myself have been coming on platforms like this, on my own radio station, and crying for Tibbs to play guys like Grimes, McBride, give Obi Toppin more minutes, take Fournier out of the starting lineup. And Tibbs, being his selfish self, he stayed with who he liked. If Derrick Rose never got hurt this year, we'd have never seen how good Quentin Grimes really is. If Derrick Rose was not hurt this year. If Emmanuel Quickly didn't go down, we would have never seen how good Deuce McBride can actually be. And they kept sending McBride back and forth from the Knicks to the G League. He'll come down from the Knicks and go down to the Westchester Knicks, score easy 30 points and dish out 10 dimes, and then come back up, and Tibbs doesn't use him. The kid can play. He played for West Virginia under Bob Huggins. Great coach. Tough-nosed, tough-minded kid. Plays defense. He's athletic, and he can shoot the ball. And he also defends. But Tibbs, stuck in his ways, sticks to guys like he's used to. Sticks to Taj Gibson. Shout out to Taj Gibson. Shout out to the Taj Gibson Foundation. You know what I mean? Tibbs is a stubborn guy, man. He's a very stubborn guy. You know? Back to my man Mike. He said, and that's the problem. As a coach, you shouldn't play who you like, but play who is effective. And that's a fact. So let me ask a question to everybody out there. And I said it a while ago. I hated to say it, but I feel like Tibbs has ran his course here in New York. But if you get rid of Tom Thibodeau, who are you bringing in to replace him? Me, I already know in my mind who I know and I feel that they should bring in, but I want to hear from you guys out there who you feel that he should bring in. Again, if you want to chime in and call in live, the number to call in is 516-206-0711. We are live on air. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube, and we're live on Twitter. You know what I mean? But again, Tibbs is definitely the problem. I do think that he's ran his course here in New York, and I do think that it's time to go. Now, some of the other young stars that are starting to emerge on the Knicks is also Jericho Sims. He played solid minutes off the bench. Even though he had 6 points, he added 10 boards in 23 minutes, and he was perfect from the field. I know 3 for 3 isn't saying much, but it is saying something. And yes, Mike, you hit it right on the head. Mark Murdoch Avenue Action Jackson. Mark Jackson, to me, should be the next coach of the New York Knicks. Minus the politics and everything else involved with it, Mark Jackson should be the next coach of the Knicks. I think that Tibbs' style of coaching is outdated. I think that Mark Jackson, with the experience that he had as the coach of Golden State, he would be a perfect guy for the type of team that we have right now. He'll be a perfect guy for them. He can deal with the New York media. He can help the point guards be point guards. He can actually run an offense, even though I heard some of the problem in Golden State outside of the politics was his offense was predictable. But Mark Jackson would be the perfect fit for a team like this. Young guys trying to find their way as point guards. He can help these guys navigate through the game and through the media. And I think that he's the only one, if you move on from Tom Thibodeau, outside of Jeff Van Gundy, that you can bring in to be the Knicks' next head coach without any problem. It'll be a smooth transition. You know what I mean? Shout out to my guy, Mike, man. And don't forget, man, my man Mike is a magic in the kitchen, man. For those that don't know, Mike's Jerk Chicken, man. We're going to have to get Mike up here to talk about his business, man, as far as his food and everything. Next week, we got to definitely do something like that because that's my guy right there, and we support one another, man. Salute to my guy on the check-in. Now, back to Jericho Sims. Jericho Sims is playing so well that the team is actually thinking about moving on from Mitchell Robinson. We'll definitely get a little bit more to that deep into the show. But overall, you know, this season, the Knicks are definitely at a disappointing 28-40 record. You know, they're sitting 12th in the East right now. They're 5 games out of the play-in game, which I really don't think they need to get involved in. I think they need to, you know, get a good pick that we can possibly package in a trade for a star player. And I think they need to build off of that, man. So overall, they went 3-4 on this road trip. Again, you know, they didn't look really, they looked well, they looked good, but they didn't put up a fight, you know, when it came down to it in the end. Careless turnovers, bad play calling, and a combination of not having a superstar player like Memphis had and Ja Morant and Brooklyn having and Kevin Durant killed us, you know, when it came down to it, man. This is a star power and a star-driven league, and if you don't have a star player, you don't have a chance nowadays. Now, in the second part of this show, I'm definitely going to talk about some players that the Knicks have on their radar, and I think that the fan base will love them. I'm just not sure if it will be the right time for them to come here. So like I said before, the number to call in is 516-206-0711. And you know how we do it here at Bars and Hoops Radio, man. We bring it, and we bringing you that hip-hop heat, and we bring you that sports talk that all of us like to talk about, man. So don't forget, we're going to take a quick music break, and when we come back, we're going to get back into some more of this Knicks Talk Nation. Every Monday, 10 to 11, Knicks Talk Nation Radio. Your boy Stills the Great. Check in with me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Getting dizzy counting summers we spent on the road. My homie down counting birthdays he spent on the phone. We both was putting up half, we was supposed to be whole. So every time I get a win when I feel it the most. This ain't the star you see running the streets. You used to see me on something, now I'm something to see. Got 100 clip under the seat. Can't even trust my own cousin, I'm clutching a peak. You wanna be gang, just say that. They gon' think I'm Mac when I pull up in that Maybach. Take it to the max, this niggas asking where the wave at. One day they'll read the Bible and be asking where my page at. Every day I get down on my knees. Right. God remove these fake niggas surrounding me. Been in the stool, I ain't made it to the trap all day. Cause fiends gon' smoke, but I ain't positive that rap gon' wait. Let a nigga call me tryna spend some cash on weight. Like he uptown, I'm out the door, tearing ass up 8th. Niggas could never slip their feet up in these foam runners. You run you up a quick 100 off my phone number. Could be 2 if you grind and stack for the whole summer. Back to the block, junkies treated like it's homecoming. Turn it to a party on the strip. I got
the world of hip hop and
money
sports
make
live.
it hard to be legit. From the streets, can have $1 billion, still won't bargain me some shit. Son of a gun, niggas bugging, boy. My father was a brick. Pardon me, Papa, I'm just keeping it a thou out on bail. The DA hype, she got a seat for me and child. Got the blower, niggas one try to creep and heat me down. God got me so through the storm and make it easier to smile.
Yeah.
you was playing patty cake, we was letting ratty shake. Just left my man wake, his mom's begged not to retaliate. Gutter nigga, you gon' probably find me by an alleyway. Pay a scholarship to school you niggas like a Sally Mae. Before it was tradition to jump a nigga and strip him, but nowadays they photo dump a nigga and clip him. Baby face predicates killing right off the boob. Then they gon' put the evidence for you right on YouTube. From waiting on negotiating with a therapist, because they ain't negotiating with a terrorist. I call a spade before they tell me what the terror is. The Glock is from Austria, but the chopper is Arabic. So I dare a derelict. I plan to shoot her right beside your ranch like a carrot stick, nigga. Cop killer queens, it get scary. Where bitches want your DNA if your genes is a Mary. Of course, they never need me in theory, but maybe that's just me being weary. This shit is getting troubling. They send a text to see if the bubble's green. Max is dangle off the floor, but I've been running things. Pyrex vision, how they feed in the streets. It's R.P. Virgil, I'm writing peace on my piece. Pressing cause I'm down, don't care who hear me. Put the kitchen in the basement like a two-family. On his last lap, he was running down and they flipped the script. We talk about tomorrow, but never knowing when this is it. I'm not mad at niggas who envy. I made magic when it was pennies. Yeah, and they play the traffic if it was trendy. And she gon' grab it because it's Fendi. God.
Back to live action. Shout out to everybody checking in on the chat right now. Shout out to Kane Jerry. He says, salute. The Hornets just won, and the Hawks are 6 games behind from the 10th seed. Trae Young had 42, 12, and 6. Terry Rozier had 34 and 6. Salute to them. They had a great win today, man. For real. And shout out to John Conception. He said, yes, the Nuggets coach, Mike Malone, his contract might be up soon. I don't know if Mike Malone will cut it here in New York. I think that at this point, man, you got to stick with some guys that Knicks fans have been looking for forever. And I really think that Mark Jackson really deserves a shot at coming back to the NBA. And why not come back home to, show love to the fan base and kind of bring this team up from the mud, because right now they need a shot in the arm, and right now Tibbs isn't doing it. He had a great season last year. You had to honor him, and you couldn't disrespect him by firing him this year, because regardless of the fact, he did a great job last year. He brought the fan base up. He brought the best out of Julius Randle last year, but this year it doesn't seem like his message is resonating with the team. But back to live action. Before we went to the break, man, I was talking about the Knicks need to, look at trying to get a star, but we finally drafted one, and it seems like it's panning out. And the guy I'm talking about is R.J. Barrett, man. And I know a lot of people will sit there and try to compare R.J. Barrett to Ja Morant or to Zion Williamson, but R.J. Barrett has been quietly a solid assassin here for the Knicks, and he's been solid since he came into the league. In 2019, RJ averaged 14 points, 5 boards, and 2 dimes. In 2020, upped his point average to 17 points, 5 boards, and 3 dimes. And this year, though his numbers aren't really that much better than last year, he's averaging 19 points, 5 boards, and 2 dimes. The man is playing harder. You see the confidence in his game. And it looks like we finally struck gold on a draft pick. You know what I mean? We had Kristaps Porzingis. He didn't want to play here, and look at him now. He's been injury prone since he left. It looks like Phil Jackson picked a horrible pick, just like he did with Frank Ntilikina. And another guy that we're going to end up going after is somebody that we could have had on draft night, and I'm talking about Donovan Mitchell. But again, Phil Jackson, one of the guys that wanted to run this triangle, and he ended up blowing it for us by not picking Donovan Mitchell. You know what I mean? So, and shout out to Mike. He said, is he playing out, or is it because of his contract year? That's a good question. I think that he showed some improvement. And just to put it in context, Mike, because that's a good question, because it looks like Julius Randle did that last year. But when you look at RJ Barrett, right? He's in elite company. When you look at R.J. Barrett's numbers, and I'm going to run them off to you, and you'll be very surprised at the company that he's in. So R.J. Barrett becomes the 8th youngest player in NBA history to have 3,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 500 assists. I'm going to say it again. He becomes the 8th youngest player in NBA history to have 3,000 points, 1,000 boards, and 500 assists. You can look it up. Now I'm going to name the 8 players that he's in company with. Number 1, it's in no particular order. Number 1, Kevin Durant. Number 2, Kobe Bryant. Number 3, Antoine Walker. And before everybody laugh at Antoine Walker, if you remember a young Antoine Walker in Boston, he was a problem. He was a really big problem. Number 4, LeBron James. Number 5, Luka Doncic. Number 6, T-Mac. And number 7 is Carmelo Anthony. And you know who the number 8th player is? R.J. Barrett. Our own R.J. Barrett is an elite company, and he's looking like it's panning out. I don't think it's a fluke. I don't think that it's because it's a contract year. I think that what's really happening is Julius Randle is hampering R.J. Barrett's growth. If you ask me, Julius Randle is taking the ball out of his hands. The team, truth be told, should be running the offense through R.J. Barrett. It's a better flow. R.J. Barrett has a better handle. R.J. Barrett actually attacks the basket, and he finishes. You know what I mean? And he makes his free throws, and he doesn't turn the ball over. So actually running the offense through Julius Randle is definitely the worst thing to do as a head coach. But again, I guess they feel like they paid him the big bucks. They got to run everything through him. And, you know, it's just what the team is doing right now. But yes, Mike, yes, he's in good company. You know what I mean? He's definitely in good company. For real. And he attempts to play defense. That's a fact. Shout out to my man, Mike. Word up, man. So, as I said earlier, should the Knicks run the offense exclusively through R.J. Barrett moving forward? I believe that they should. Again, his numbers are not a fluke. Last week, the week before that, he's had consistent games. He's looked better. You heard guys like Jimmy Butler commenting on him, saying that he's definitely the truth. You know what I mean? Guys saying that they see the confidence in his game. You know, guys like Jimmy Butler basically said that he's putting the team on his back and he's taking control of the team. You know, so these guys seeing it, you know, is definitely a good thing. And shout out to Reem Be Thorough. For real, I see you, my brother. I already know how you feel about Julius Randle. Shout out to my brother Syke. I see you. And they should run the offense through R.J. Barrett. That's a fact. You know what I mean? For real. Now, the next question is, should the Knicks commit to R.J. Barrett long term? Because truth be told, it's a lot of people out there, namely Donovan Mitchell, Dame Lillard, you know, guys that are unhappy in their situation and guys that may be on the move, like a Russell Westbrook. You know what I mean? Guys like a Zion Williamson. If it came down to it, do you hold on to R.J. Barrett or do you add him in a trade to get these type of guys? Because you know they're going to want him. For real. They're going to definitely want him in any type of deal to get any type of superstar. The question is, do you trade a guy like R.J. Barrett, who I just said is probably the Knicks' best draft pick that we had since Patrick Ewing? Has to be. You know what I mean? And shout out to Mike. He said, I give him a good 3-year, $100 million deal, and that should be suffice. Yeah, they looking for 4-year deals. They're not doing no 3-year deals. For real. Shout out to Syke. He said it's better off keeping RJ. I kind of agree with that. I kind of hold on to RJ Barrett by any means necessary. Everybody else is expendable. Randle can be out of here. Quickly can be out of here. Get all of those guys out of here. You know what I mean? The only ones that's untouchable on this roster right now, to me, is RJ, Obi, Sims, Grimes, and McBride. Everybody else can go. Everybody else can go. Clean house. If it takes If it takes, getting rid of a guy like Randle to bring in a guy like Donovan Mitchell, I'm all for it. You know what I mean? For real. I'm all for that. So, as I said before, Donovan Mitchell's name has been hot on the presses. A lot of people have been linking him to the Knicks because he's unhappy in Utah, apparently. Him and Rudy Gobert doesn't really get along. They never really got along after the whole COVID situation. And I think that Mitchell kind of doesn't want to be in that Utah market. We all know how it is out there in that Midwest. Utah ain't too far from Minnesota. You know what I mean? And shout out to my brother Dave. I see you. Said keep RJ and Reddish, period. And keep Reddish. Shout out to Mike. Everybody, shout out to John. Yes, keep Reddish. I like Reddish. I like the fact that, he has a smooth game, but I don't know, man. I don't know. The Knicks have some really tough decisions to make. He said, but nobody wants Randle. If Kobe didn't want him, he's a wash. I mean, listen, I think that you could get, if Randle in the right situation as a third string player on a team that has some studs that he got to fall in line when he gets there, I think that he'll be just fine. As far as New York right now, I think that RJ has clearly emerged as the team's face and young player, and it's time to move on from Julius Randle. Because we have to remember, the Knicks' initial plan was to move on from Julius Randle last year. Truth be told, they drafted they drafted Obi Toppin. He was the college national player of the year. He was a power forward. And we all knew that once they drafted Obi, Julius's days were numbered as a Knick. It just so happened that last year he balled out, the team rewarded him, and now we're stuck with him. You know what I mean? Truth be told, we're stuck with him until, a team will take him off our hands. And I think that if we add him with another player and some draft picks, he can be moved because we definitely have the pieces to move people. And shout out to David Chef Guy Lewis. That's my brother right there. Shout out to Dave. He said Reddish has a lot of promise and doesn't need a lot of development. Just consistent playing time. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Tibbs has to give him that. It's a shame that he separated his shoulder this year, but hey, man, that's the breaks. Shout out to my man Mike. He said, but his ego won't allow him to be the third string player. Randle hasn't learned anything from Melo. It's ball. The ball will have a vacation. It's ball or have a vacation or vacation permanently. That's a fact. But the difference between Randle and Melo is that Melo had thick skin. Melo was built for New York. As much as fans booed Melo towards the end of his Knick tenure, Melo never turned to the crowd and threw a thumbs down. Melo took it with stride. The Knicks never had to hide Melo from the media to talk or anything like that. To me, Melo was like the best thing that happened to the Knicks in a long time. Even though we didn't get the championship, he definitely was built for New York City. And he came here in the prime of his career. He could have went anywhere else to chase a ring, but he came to New York, one, because his wife wanted to be in New York. That was his wife's favorite team, and that was his favorite team growing up as a kid before he moved to Baltimore. You know what I mean? You got to give Melo his props, man. You know what I mean? And Melo don't get any respect for that. You know what I mean? And it's sad. But I think that when his career is over and said and done, the Knicks will eventually do the right thing and hang Melo's jersey up in the rafters. I just looked at an NBA special, and I looked at the Boston game yesterday. Kevin Durant played a few seasons in Boston and got his jersey retired with the Celtics. I think that the Knicks will do the same thing for Carmelo Anthony because he definitely shined a different light on his team when he chose to come here. You know what I mean? Now, back to the Donovan Mitchell Jr. Rumors. Basically, they're feeling like the tensions are going to get higher and higher if the Utah Jazz can't make it out of the playoffs or can't make a strong playoff run. They always have great regular seasons. Quinn Snyder's a great coach, but it just doesn't seem like the Utah Jazz can get over the hump, especially in the West. especially with the Phoenix Suns being who they are, especially with the Warriors being the tougher, especially with the emergence of the Memphis Grizzlies. It doesn't look like Utah is going to be moving anywhere anytime soon. And I don't think that Donovan Mitchell is going to stick around to wait out a whole new era and a whole new chapter unfolding with the emergence of the Memphis Grizzlies, because they're going to be there for a long time, and they have all their draft picks as well moving forward. They have some great management over there. Their coach is well. He's a good coach, and Ja Morant is the next coming of, I don't want to say Allen Iverson, but I don't think that we've seen anything like this kid before. People want to compare him to Iverson because of his size and his frame, but nah, he's something different, man. He's totally different. Now, back to the Donovan Mitchell thing. If the Knicks go after a guy like Donovan Mitchell, is it the right thing for the Knicks? Does he move the needle for New York if they go out and get him? Because it's a real thing. World Wide West is hot on his trail. This was something that has been going on for the last couple of years, so it's not really a secret. A lot of NBA executives, a lot of insiders really believe that Donovan Mitchell will end up in New York by hook or crook. The only way the Knicks can get him is by breaking some eggs and trading some pieces to get him. So, does he make the team exponentially better is the question. Me, I'm kind of on the fence with it because Donovan Mitchell, though he's a great talent, very good, very young, tough player, reminds me of a D Wade, but he's undersized. He's that in-between guy. You know what I mean? I don't know if just bringing him to New York alone will do it for the team. He's a great talent. Again, don't get me wrong. Exciting player. You know what I mean? He's box office. You know what I mean? He's definitely somebody that people will pay to come and see. But I don't think that he can do it here all on his own. You know what I mean? His father, and shout out to John, his father works for the Mets, and his father, his proper title at the Mets, he's the director of player relations and community engagement. So that's the connections that he have to New York. He's the bigger market, New York roots. Again, his father working for the Mets, that helps. He was also a CAA client, and we all know CAA. Leon Rose was the agent there for many years. He had some of the top players in the league with CAA there. World Wide West, of course, former CAA rep. And they both never rep Mitchell, but they've been attached to him since he was a young man coming out of high school. And again, the Knicks had every opportunity to get Donovan Mitchell when he was drafted, but they chose to go with Frank Ntilikina. That had to be the worst draft move ever. That's up there with the Knicks drafting Frederick Weiss, or the Knicks drafting Walter McCarty, John Wallace, and Dante Jones at 16, 17, and 19. The Knicks had 3 back-to-back first-round picks and didn't hit on any of them. That's why I say having a guy like R.J. Barrett is a blessing, man. You know what I mean? It's a blessing. And again, shout out to everybody showing love in the chat. Shout out to everybody checking us out live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you want to call in and share your thoughts on the Knicks, the phone lines are open. The number to call in is 516-206-0711. I would love to hear your voice speaking about our beloved Knicks. Now, let's just say this, hypothetically speaking. There was a trade proposal that went out there for the Knicks. And shout out to John Conception. He said Donovan Mitchell wanted to play baseball, but he separated his shoulder and went and played basketball. Wow, I didn't know that. Shout out to John for that piece of information. I never knew that. I never knew that he was a baseball star. But now it makes sense. You know what I mean? Now it definitely makes sense. And I know a lot of people probably didn't know that as well. But yes, I would like to have Donovan Mitchell, but I also want another player to come with him. You know what I mean? So now, hypothetically, what would it take? It's going to at least take 2 first-round picks, Randle, Walker, quickly, and probably a guy like Nerlens Noel to get a deal like for Donovan Mitchell. You know what I mean? It's going to have to take that. If we can keep RJ out of that, I would. If you bring in Donovan Mitchell, we can move RJ to the 3, have Donovan Mitchell at the 2. You know what I mean? But what if we miss out on Mitchell? Would you make a run and trade for Russell Westbrook? Now, before everybody starts throwing tomatoes at their computer screen, starts calling me all types of names in the chat, think about it. Would a guy like Russell Westbrook fit in an offense in a Coach Tibbs-led team? Don't all answer at one time. I'm going to answer for you. I think that a guy like Russell Westbrook would flourish here in New York. Why? Because he'll be the focal point of the offense. He'll have the ball in his hand. Obviously, it's not working in L.A. because he has to tippy-toe around, working around LeBron. And right now, he's playing at home. The amount of pressure, the L.A. fan base, he thought that it would be a good thing coming back home, but sometimes it's not the best thing to be home playing in front of your hometown fans. This is why Kemba Walker didn't want to come to New York initially the first time around before he went to Boston, because the pressure of playing in front of your fan base and in front of your home crowd is definitely not something that everybody can do. Yes, and shout out to Mike. Yes, indeed. Randle, Robinson, Noel, Burks, and a first-round draft pick. I think that would be enough to pry Donovan Mitchell Jr. from the Utah Jazz if he doesn't want to be there. But again, if we can't swing that deal, would you make a move for Russell Westbrook? It's an upside to it. Yes, he's getting paid 40-something million next week. 47 million he'll be on the books for next year. After next year, he will not be on the books. So you can actually move on from him or find somebody else. And shout out to Mike. He said Westbrook might be a good fit, but it's hard to determine because of Tibbs' old school style of play. You got to remember, Tibbs' best years as a coach was with who was his point guard? Derrick Rose, right? Derrick Rose and Russell Westbrook have similar games. They both play the same way. They both play with the same intensity. They both attack the basket. Well, Rose used to attack the basket. And yes, Westbrook does have a lot of turnovers. But you got to remember, man, Westbrook averaged a triple-double for what? What is it, 2-3 seasons? It's the reason why he's a top 75 player. He's not a bum. It just so happens that his last couple of situations weren't great fits. Let's think about it. He left OKC where he led a young team on a playoff push with young players. He did well with them. After KD left, I think that was like one of the seasons that he put up MVP numbers. That's when he started averaging triple-doubles, and people were mad at him because it seemed like his triple-doubles were staged, like they were letting him grab the rebounds. Okay, granted. He went to Houston. Turned around, still averaged a triple-double. But the thing about him in Houston, he had to share the ball with James Harden. At that time, Harden was a totally different player than he was when they were both in OKC together. It didn't work. They ended up parting ways. They ended up getting rid of Westbrook and sending him to the Washington Wizards. They paired him up with Bradley Beal, another bad fit. Bradley Beal is a volume shooter that needs the ball in his hands. You know what I mean? Him and Russell Westbrook, at times, it seems like they were sharing the ball, and that didn't work. They were sharing the ball on who scores now, who doesn't score. It just wasn't good. It wasn't a good fit for him. So everywhere that he's been on 4 teams in the past 4 years. You know what I mean? I really think that the perfect fit, and Tibbs wanted him when he was on Washington. He was urging the Knicks to be more aggressive in free agency and on the trade market to get Russell Westbrook. I really believe that Westbrook will be a great fit here in New York for many reasons. He'll be where he wanted to be outside of LA. New York is a big market. It's also one of the iconic places for fashion. You see Westbrook when he comes to games, he does look, a little weird at times when he walks through the corridor to come to games, but he's into fashion. He has a fashion line. And I'm not saying that the guy should come to New York strictly for off the court moves, but I think that he'll be comfortable in the city when he comes here. 2, he'll instantly take the pressure off of a guy like RJ Barrett. You know what I mean? I would definitely give, I would definitely bring in a guy like that because he fits the coaching style. He'll take the pressure off of RJ Barrett, and he's and quite frankly, he's not as selfish as everybody thinks he is. You don't average a triple-double by being a selfish basketball player. You just don't. And shout out to Mike. He said, I would give Westbrook $30 million and a $20 million bonus provided he averages 24 points and 8 assists. Good proposition. I think that he can average those numbers with no problem here in New York. And I think that that's the type of guy that Tibbs needs to run his teams. Tibbs is a guy that runs his players in the ground. Truth be told, Tibbs is the reason why Derrick Rose is in the position that he's in now. Always hurt, injury prone, because he played them and ran them guys into the ground. Look at Joakim Noah. Joakim Noah was broken up when he came here, and the Knicks are still paying Joakim Noah, by the way. Thanks, Phil Jackson. You know what I mean? Joakim Noah is a broken down player. Taj Gibson has proved to be durable, but again, Tibbs aces, he always run those guys into the ground. But a guy like Russell Westbrook, who seems like after his Achilles injury, he came back stronger, I would take a chance on him, especially with the market being dried up for point guards. Guys are signing or re-signing. The Sacramento Kings, they got rid of Tyrese Halliburton to make sure that they keep De'Aaron Fox. And De'Aaron Fox was somebody that the Knicks were looking at. So you got to look at it this way. It's only 2 ways the Knicks can go for point guards. It's either John Wall or Russell Westbrook. I think that Russell Westbrook is a Tibbs guy. I think coming to New York City will re-energize him as a player, and I think it'll be his last stop. I really think that this will be a good place for Russell Westbrook to finish his career or play the game of basketball. You know what I mean? For real. Shout out to Mike. He said the Knicks need to hire Iverson as a point guard coach to develop their guards. AI was not a point guard, my brother. AI was a shooter. That's why they called him Bubba Chuck. You know what I mean? AI was not passing that rock. You know what I mean? For real, man. But just imagine this. Let's just play a little game of imagine, man. Yes. If a Russell Westbrook trade was to be made, right? Can you picture a lineup with Russell Westbrook, Quentin Grimes at the 2, because he's a shooter. RJ Barrett, move him down to the 3. He's a versatile shooter, scorer, slasher, and he defends. Julius Randle will still be here at the 4, and Mitchell Robinson will be your 5. The bench, we'll still have McBride, we'll still have Sims, we'll still have Toppin, and we'll still have Reddish. What do you think about that type of team right there? That's a team that will run and gun right there. And I think that Westbrook would definitely be a spark plug to that team. Shout out to Mike. He said the Knicks should have given Trey Burke an opportunity. Yes, I like Trey Burke, but, he was undersized. The time that he was here, he was here with Tim Hardaway Jr., his former college backcourt mate. And I just think that the game had surpassed him at the time. He was too small. You know what I mean? You got to look at guys like now, Luka Doncic, big point guards, Tyrese Halliburton. You know what I mean? The game is changing, man. Chris Paul is the guy that we missed out on. If the Knicks had Chris Paul right now, this team would be in a totally different position than they are now. Look at what he's doing in Phoenix. He wanted to come here, but unfortunately COVID happened. He didn't want to move his family. And then because of the mandates and everything and fans not being in the stands, it ended up not happening. You know what I mean? Chris Paul was the guy we were supposed to have. Chris Paul should have been here with Carmelo Anthony instead of Tyson Chandler along with Amari Stoudemire. Let's go back to that infamous toast that Chris Paul made at Carmelo's wedding, man. It was supposed to be Amari Stoudemire, Carmelo Anthony, and CP3. The Knicks would have probably had a trophy or a banner hanging up in the garden during those years that they could have possibly played together. But again, Phil Jackson, being an egotistical maniac, not listening to good people and not having good people around him to make sound decisions, he passed up on the opportunity to get Chris Paul, and he brought in Tyson Chandler to make the lineup more clumsy, as he called it. You know what I mean? For real, man. So I think that, Westbrook should be in the fold, should be in the mix next year. The Knicks have to do something to improve this team. I don't care what it is. If that means that you trade a couple pieces that you don't have in your future plans to get a guy like Westbrook to gamble on him, you do that. And in this draft, you search for a point guard high and low that you could bring in and develop. And if it doesn't work with Tibbs, you bring in a guy like Mark Jackson. Now, another name that people are saying other teams have their eye on is Mitchell Robinson. Because the Knicks didn't extend his contract, he's a restricted free agent. And teams like the Pistons, the Thunder, and the Mavs are eyeing him. Do you think that the Knicks should bring Mitchell Robinson back? I mean, he can be a double-double machine if he's healthy, but that if he's healthy is a big if. Every time I see him fall, I cringe because he just can't seem to stay upright for whatever reason it is. He's always hurt and he's injury prone. But he's a monster on the boards and he's a monster on the defensive end if he really sets his mind to it and plays with his head in the game. And I think a lot of his problem is mental. You know what I mean? He still moves around like a little kid, even though he's still a kid technically. But Tibbs likes guys that's serious, man. So even though he had an up and down season this year, Mitchell Robinson is averaging 8 points, 8 boards, and 1 block per game. But the shooting is off the charts from the field. He's shooting 76% from the field, and we all know that his field goals comes from dunks and alley-oops. You know what I mean? The one glaring weakness in his game is his free throw shooting. He's shooting 48% from the free throw line, and that's not going to cut it in today's NBA. So now, with all that being said, do you keep Mitch? I think you roll the dice on him. Don't give him a big contract. If somebody else is willing to give him, big bucks elsewhere, then hey, so be it. You know what I mean? Let him go. But if you have the chance, I don't let him walk for nothing. You know what I mean? I don't let him walk for nothing because we still own his rights as a restricted free agent. You know what I mean? So if somebody's willing to give him the bag, instead of letting him go for nothing, try to make a sign and trade with them. You know what I mean? To get something in return for him. So the last point that I wanted to make, and this is something that I think that a lot of people are banking on, and I'm starting to jump on that train right now, is do you take a chance on Zion Williamson? He obviously isn't happy in New Orleans. He finally showed up to New Orleans, and he was in shape. And shout out to Mike. He said, no, let him go unless he wants to go to school for the Olajuwon or big man camp. That's a fact because he doesn't have any offensive games. He doesn't have a low post game. Doesn't have any moves on offense. He's basically a Tyson Chandler 2.0. You know what I mean? But back to my last question. Do you take a chance on trading for a guy like Zion Williamson? It looks like he wants to play here in New York. He wasn't shy about it in his comments during the press conference when he played here last. The only problem I have with him is him being healthy. But again, like I said, he reported back to New Orleans, and he looks like he's in great shape. He's not 315 pounds at all. He looks like he's definitely more around the 260-pound mark than the 315-pound mark. If you go to Google right now, Google Zion Williamson returns to New Orleans. You'll see him in shoot around. You'll see him standing next to a couple of his teammates, and you see that he looks strong and he looks lean. Shout out to John. He said he's 299 pounds right now. Oh, they killing Zion with the fat jokes. Yeah, it's too much pizzerias around here, too much Italian food. It's too much everything for Zion out here. But I really think that he wants to be in the Mecca. I really think his camp wants him to be in New York City. And I think the fact that he can be reunited with R.J. Barrett and Cam Reddish, it makes it a very intriguing move moving forward, man. And I really think that the Knicks will take that chance on him. You know what I mean? I really think that they'll take that chance on him. And I think they should take the chance on him. Because right now, nobody is looking to make the Knicks better. You want players that want to come here and you want to play. So if we get the chance to get a Zion Williamson, I'll give New Orleans whatever they want outside of R.J. Barrett and Cam Reddish and Quentin Grimes and Obi Toppin. You know what I mean? Everybody else is expendable. Everybody else can go. You know what I mean? So first and foremost, man, I want to say shout out to everybody that checked in today, man. Shout out to Mike. Shout out to John. Shout out to Dave. Shout out to Syke. Shout out to everybody that chimed in on the chat. Shout out to everybody listening live on BarsandHoopsRadio.com. Shout out to everybody listening on BarsandHoops.com. Shout out to everybody checking us out on Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget, we do this every Monday from 10 to 11. If you ever want to chime in and get on live with me, the number to always call in is 516-206-0711. You want to promote your business, you know we show love up here. We show love to all black businesses, all businesses in general. If you want to chime in with us, you can always hit us up at barsandhoopsradio@gmail.com for any inquiries. And, you know, if you want to do any interviews or any features, hit us up at the email as well, man. So, again, Still's the Great, Knicks Talk Nation Radio, every Monday from 10 to 11. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Your boy is out of here again. And on that note, your boy is saying peace.
New York City, we back. The Big Apple, NY. The Knicks are back. Staten Mellow. This dedicated to my city, New York. Official kings in the court. Reach with a ball, a hard lesson gets taught. So bring your skills to the nearest playground. No clown around. Catch a helmet in the minute on a New York playground. The Big Apple's what they call it for short. And basketball is our sport. We play for keeps and never settle for short. So bring your game when you come to my town. We snatch a crowd. You get embarrassed on the court after you shook to the ground. You get respected when you prove you get down. So say the joke for the clowns. And NYC, we known to go a few rounds. This is the city where you're forced to go hard. You'll get booed out of Dodge and shown the door being the weakest on squads. Rucker Park and summer nights, they stay live. Brothers play for the pride and bragging rights on who's the king of NY. So grab the pill and prepare to go hard. Pick your 12-man squad. Orange and blue better believe we go hard. This for my city, New York, New York City where it's gritty. Yeah. For my city, never pretty. New York City, sing it with me. Yeah. For my city, New York City where it's gritty. NYC, for my city, never pretty. Yeah. New York City, sing it with me.